Clive Gilson here. As you know from previous tales and things, most of the time I tell traditional folk stories from cultures around the world as part of the Tales from the World's Firesides project. Just occasionally, though, I do something a little different, and today we have the second in an occasional series of original short stories written by me, Clive Gilson, the story guy. Jeff had a drift on. The sort of drift that blows dry leaves along the gutter, an autumnal mood swing. He caught the eye of the waitress and pointed at his empty glass. There was no need for words, for the awkward camaraderie of the lonely drinker and the working girl. It was a new bar, new to Jeff anyway, but he'd already established the most basic and essential form of communication. She knew what his usual tickle was. The fourth shot, another large one, no ice. He could hear the straining flatline of someone murdering Uptown Girl in the karaoke room next door, but it was all white noise. He shoved a plate of cold, congealing food into the middle of the table. He'd ordered a cheeseburger and fries, no salad, but his appetite was only really a function of his conscience. Without hunger to drive his impulse to recognise a thing as food, he found the charred edges of the meat patty distinctly disturbing. He hoped the waitress would take it away when she brought his drink over. He had got as far as unwrapping the knife and fork from their red paper napkin, but they still lay clean and sterile on the polished wood surface of the booth table. Jeff picked up the knife and ran a fingernail along the serrated edge of the blade. He put it back down, making sure that the knife and fork were positioned exactly in the middle of the napkin. Obsessive, he thought. Compulsive? He had to stop the displacement activity. The waitress stood at the table looking at the plate of untouched food. The inevitable question occurred to both of them, to which all sane people nodded apologetically, but it stuck in both her and Jeff's throat. Just like that burger would if I tried to eat it, thought Jeff. The waitress persevered. Is everything... No problem, not with the food anyway, Jeff said, smiling dispiritedly up at her. He felt he couldn't leave it at that, so he added, just not hungry. He shook his head. She lifted a tumbler from her tray and slid his drink onto the table. She raised an eyebrow, and as she stooped to pick up the plate, Jeff moved his left arm onto the table so that he covered the naked cutlery. The woman made no attempt to collect it. They exchanged a quick glance before she reached out to clear the empty tumblers that had contained Jeff's first 3 drinks from the table. A simple, unspoken question and answer. Should I? No, not yet. Strictly speaking, this place wasn't a bar. The karaoke room next door was for postprandial entertainment. It was amazing what people would do in the name of a good time, even at this late hour. The burger itself had been Jeff's way of getting another drink, of getting more drinks in fact. He'd fulfilled his side of the bargain by ordering food, and now they had to fulfill theirs. That was the thing about licensing laws. Even though you could, as a landlord, open for business whenever you wanted to now, everybody made rules. In this part of town, the bars killed the lights around 1 o'clock in the morning. Terminal soaks and insomniacs had a choice. They could go to Clubland or to places like this. They could have pierced eardrums or thinly veneered late-night diners with a license. Not that Jeff had been on the sauce all night. He rarely drank before 10 and never in daylight hours. He had things to do. The problem started when he ran out of things to do. Counting empty tumblers was as good a thing to do in the wee small hours as anything else, and it beat the herding of sheep into a cocked hat for entertainment value. Jeff liked being near people when he couldn't sleep. It wasn't for conversation, nor was it for any sort of vicarious thrill. Jeff just liked sound and presence, although he preferred to limit proximity. He took a shot. Cheap Spanish brand. It kept the wolves at bay. He felt the skin inside his mouth tingle as the 35% proof fire bit. Once, in another bar, he tried to see if he could get full value for money by laying 6 empty tumblers on their sides. He'd waited for the sticky residue of drink that clung to the glass to succumb to gravity and room temperature and pool at the lowest part of the curve. The question was, would he get another shot? The trick that other late-night drinkers missed out on in this sort of situation was patience. Wire in the blood and all that, Jeff thought. The bartender that night had started off by being amused, but Jeff's insistence on waiting the full 15 minutes before stacking each glass in turn on top of his last drink, balancing rim upon rim to complete the job, soon ceased to entertain. Jeff hadn't quite decided whether to try it again tonight. Something about the way the waitress looked at him suggested otherwise. The waitress was older than most of them, older than Jeff remembered them being at least. He twisted in his booth, resting his back against the back wall, and looked out across the bar. The place was sparsely populated, mostly by kids, or people Jeff thought of as kids. They were probably in their early 20s, had jobs, needed dental plans, and were already tripping merrily along the yellow brick road to a conservative middle age. That was really when he did notice the difference. There were 3 waitresses on the graveyard shift, dealing with the fallout from early club leavers and Friday night excursions to satiate the late night munchies. His waitress was in her 40s, very Frankie and Johnny. It occurred to Jeff that the kids got the pretty girls, and immediately it occurred to him that that was unfair. He guessed, though, that it was something to do with the myth of freedom. Older men on their own in situations like this, in the witching hours, drinking alone, couldn't be trusted. Jeff thought it was thanks to the power of the free press, for newspaper headlines that scream vengeance against paedophiles and sex offenders, the whole name and shame culture. The bartender looked over at him, making a mental note of Jeff's make, model and license plate number. No, thought Jeff, they wouldn't send the pretty ones to deal with the ritual inhabitants of the Insomniac Booths. That's fine though, he mused, swilling his brandy round in his glass. Age is immaterial, he thought. No, then he thought, let's get that right. Their age is immaterial. My age is entirely material to the case. Anyway, Jeff thought, the young ones look right through me these days. That was the point at which Jeff felt a sudden craving for nicotine. 3 months on the straight and narrow. He'd tried before with a total lack of success, but this time it was working. He'd gone cold turkey. The day after the ban on smoking in public places, he'd been thrown out of a bar for absent-mindedly lighting up. That was when Jeff knew that something had to give, and he'd made his choice. When it came right down to it, he needed the low-light comfort of the booth more than he needed a hit of tobacco. He reached into his jacket pocket, snapped the foil backing off a tab of nicotine gum, and popped 4 milligrams into his mouth. Once upon a time it had been different. Girls, women, they had been different, subtle and alive. Was that right? Wondered Jeff. Maybe it was he who had once been subtle and alive. Too much thinking at this time of night was bad for you. He had vague images in his head of eyes meeting sometime in the way back, images of the way women used to look at him. The edges of his inner vision blurred as the slide in time took hold. He couldn't put his finger on it, not on the pulse. They used to look at him, he thought. Then they smiled but looked past him, which he thinks he'd somehow missed at the time. And then, tonight, my God, he thought, is that what they mean when they say someone looks like an eager puppy? He could see spreading waistlines and floppy ears and the reflections sparkling on the upturned wine glasses hanging by their stems from the shelf above the bar. He shivered. His own image, early onset middle age, makes men hopelessly optimistic. Now, though, even the older waitresses treated him with disinterest. They didn't even make the effort, really, to look past him anymore. He took another sip from his tumbler, the last of the night, and decided to buy a cigar from the tin behind the bar on his way out. The thin end of the wedge? Well, perhaps, he thought, but do you know what? Who cares? That's the question that occurred to him. Who cares that my DNA is following the rest of the traffic down a one-way street, unravelling turning me invisible. Then again, maybe, Jeff thought, just maybe he'd come back and order another unpalatable meal sometime. It was Frankie and Johnny after all. It had to be worth a shot before he became as washed out as the glass in his hand. Jeff wrapped the knife and fork up in the red napkin and put them with the empty tumblers in the middle of the table. Then he put a £5 note on the table and placed his empty glass on it. It was a small gesture, a token of recognition from one insomniac to another. Okay, that's it for today's short story, The Insomniac Booth. If you've enjoyed the story, you can pick up a copy of the book, The Insomniac Booth, from most good bookstores and from Amazon, Barnes & Noble and other good online bookshops. It's available in hardback, paperback and ebook formats. The Insomniac Booth is my second collection of short stories and contains around 15 original pieces, as I say, by me, Clive Gilson, the story guy. You can find out more about me at clivegilson.com, and there are also dedicated Facebook and YouTube channels indicated in the banner at the bottom of the screen. I would appreciate it if you could hit that like button. It really helps to keep the algorithms working properly and keeps me making these tales. And please do follow and subscribe to the channels if you want to hear new stories pretty much every week, whether it's the occasional one like this, which is original fiction, or more commonly it's folk tales from cultures around the world. That's it for now then. So until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and stay inspired.